Hey there, this is James Wolfen from Twin City Seed Company, and today I want to talk to you about turf-type tall fescue, or just tall fescue, a species of turfgrass that I think is quite underutilized here in Minnesota and really across the board in northern climates. So first off, what's great about tall fescue? Quite simply, I think it's the versatility of the species. It can be used in low input lawns, it can be used in traditional lawns, and it can also be used in athletic turf settings. And the reason for that are some of these qualities listed here. So one, the great drought tolerance. Here in Minnesota, we had a very extreme drought this past summer of 2021, and tall fescue stayed greener than any other species studied at the University of Minnesota research lab. So that within itself is a great value that it provides. It also has a relatively low fertility need and pretty strong wear tolerance. That kind of lends to why it's such a great fit for athletic turf. It does well in the sun or shade. It has strong vigor, so quick germination. There are some downfalls, some kind of flaws in tall fescue, and I want to cover those. They're kind of all really related to coming out of winter. So that's not to say that you can't use tall fescue and have a beautiful lawn right away. It just means that you probably want to mix with a little bit of Kentucky bluegrass. And what will happen is the Kentucky bluegrass will do well coming out of winter, give you some nice instant green up, and the tall fescue will just come on a little bit later. So this is a map that I often like to point out, and all it is it shows us turfgrass species distribution, specifically in the Twin Cities. And what we see is that Kentucky bluegrass is by far and away the most common species used, and tall fescue is way, way down there. So this isn't to say that tall fescue should be the most prominently used turfgrass species, it's simply to point out that this is a species we could be using more. So I always like to let the data do the talking when I'm talking about turfgrass. So I want to look at some NTEP trials looking at turf-type tall fescue, and some other grasses as well. I'll bring them in as we go. So first of all, when we look at kind of the elite cultivars of turf-type tall fescue, we see extremely strong performance, turfgrass quality ratings greater than 6.0. The max is 9. Anything above 6 is very, very strong. To put that into context, I want to compare it to Kentucky bluegrass ratings, where we can see that when we look at the highest performing cultivars, kind of the cultivars in the middle and the cultivars at the bottom, the turf-type tall fescue actually outperformed the Kentucky bluegrass at all 3 levels. So if Kentucky bluegrass is kind of the control, I think this is a pretty impressive display for the turf-type tall fescue. Something that I also always like to look at is low input performance. I'm a major advocate of how can we reduce lawn inputs. So fine fescue is still king here, but just after the just after the fine fescues, the tall fescues and tall fescue mixes come in very strong. So if you have a lawn that maybe sees some wear, some high use, and you still want to go low input, turf-type tall fescue is a fantastic option to consider. I always like to bring in some points of view from the University of Minnesota, their turfgrass science lab. So this is from Dr. Eric Watkins, this quote that is, and he says, "This grass hasn't been used very much in Minnesota, but newer cultivars present good aesthetics while requiring very little irrigation. During the drought of 2021, tall fescue held up better than any other turfgrass at our research center." I think it's also fun to look through the tweets of the University of Minnesota Turfgrass Science Lab. This is kind of just a little side hobby of mine, but let's look at what they have to say, where here's a new planting of the turf-type tall fescue. Here's kind of some fun artwork that Andy Hallman did. This is also just an excuse for me to shout out Andy Hallman, one of the hardest workers I've ever met, not just in turfgrass, just in life. And here's some beautiful tall fescue where there's no irrigation. So no irrigation since summer of 2014. This picture is taken in 2016. And also some turf-type tall fescue where there's no fertilizer. So low fertilizer application, low irrigation, still fantastic performance. So once again, the 3 settings where I recommend turf-type tall fescue, 1 would be home lawns. 2 would be low input lawns where you're trying to use less water, less irrigation, and less fertilizer. And also athletic turf, so that strong vigor and the wear tolerance of turf-type tall fescue lends to this being a good sports turf. So in terms of the seed mix that we make available to you through Twin City Seed, here is our tough turf lawn seed mixture. It's great for athletic use, it's great for home, it's great for low input, and it contains 3 high-performing cultivars of turf-type tall fescue, as well as a low percentage of that Kentucky bluegrass, once again, to make sure that you've got something green coming out of winter. And as a reminder, 5% of our turfgrass seed sales are donated back to the University of Minnesota's Turfgrass Science Lab to support the great work they do. So I hope you found this short video informative. I hope you found it useful. If you did, I encourage you to give us a follow on social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. Give us a follow, and we'll be happy to put out more videos just like this one.